What's up, boys? Driving with gingers, but we're not driving. We're just sitting in a car because there's no point driving anywhere because we're quarantined. The COVID season, episode 2, eppy 2, and it is a nice, bright, sunny, chilly, nippy day. I'm rocking my Salt Life. I know you guys would appreciate that. The Salt Life, but it should really be Halt Life. The Halt Life. There's your dad joke of the day. We have lots to cover on today's episode, and I will get right to it right now. Let's start with St. Patrick's Day, one of the weirder St. Patrick's Days that's ever happened when you think about it. Really love seeing a lot of the social distancing street parties or neighborhood gatherings, all that kind of stuff, which was really neat. I had the opportunity to get 2 beer a little bit later on in the day, and then I ran out of beer, which means I probably should think about getting some beer today, because that was disappointing. And but nonetheless, the beer tastes so good after a long, hard day of taking care of your kids. Let me tell you, that's the big thing right now, is trying to keep them busy. And between that and making gourmet cupcakes, I mean, I do it all. I mean, one man can only do so much, but really inspiring everyone out there that you can do it all. Whatever you want to do, you can do it all. So who knows, maybe I'll think of something else today. One thing I did was thinking about doing, and I know that some of you aren't working, and if you're not working, maybe you want to jump in on this as well. I thought, it's been a long time since I grew my hair out. Really, I don't think I've ever really grown my hair long. So, you know, like the beard in the playoffs, I thought maybe growing this hair, because, you know, I don't know how many more years I'm gonna have all this hair, and I certainly don't know how many more years it's gonna be this color, anyways. So the COVID challenge for me is I'm gonna grow this out. See what happens. Whenever the COVID ban gets lifted, I'll give her a trim. Maybe not. Try to get some flow going here. So we'll see what happens there. So the COVID challenge is on. I'm not cutting the hair, and you'll get daily updates on that as well. In sports, the cool thing about this is the sporting news hasn't stopped. There's no shortage of sporting news, especially the free agency and trading and all that stuff in the NFL. The big news coming yesterday, Tom Brady has left the New England Patriots and reportedly has agreed to a contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is a little bit surprising, given that I don't think Tampa Bay is a contender, but they're willing to give him $30 million a year. He does have some wide receiver weapons there that Jameis Winston could not complete passes to. So be very interested to see how that all plays out. I think he's well past his prime. The back end of last year, he really topped off. So that was a tough one for them. So that's interesting to see. I know I mentioned yesterday that I thought he would stay in New England, and the Bills would be a good fit, but I guess Tom and Giselle like the sun of St. Pete's Beach. Maybe he's a big Cubano fan. Maybe he likes Cigar City beer, which, by the way, I could really use a Margarita Ghost right now. Like, that is like one of my favorite beers. And shout out to Cigar City, who are under renovations right now, and that might take a little bit longer now because of this whole situation. So last night, the NHL announced that their first COVID infected or positive player happened from the Ottawa Senators. We don't know who the player is, but let's be honest, with the way the season's gone for this guy, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Bobby Ryan. But whoever the player is, they should be locking up in a room with Eugene Melnyk. I mean, this guy is something else, and you know, karma is where it's at. So we'll see what happens there. But when it comes to the players, we know that the players are going to get it. Apparently they contracted it on their Western Road Sing in San Jose with a shared visitor dressing room by the New Jersey Nets, who also had 4 players test positive. One being Mr. Cupcake himself, Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant gave the COVID to the Sens, which You know, Katie is always in the middle of things. So that's one of them. I did take a quick stat on the worldwide cases, what have been reported, and it would equal 2 of the Big House Winter Classics. In terms of the people that have passed away, we're looking at about 3.2%, which would probably be all the Hells Angels that were there. And the people that have already recovered from COVID and are living back to as normal life as they can, that would be 43% already have gone through, which is good. So you know, when it comes to the pandemic, we're working through it, and it's going to get worse here before it gets better in about 10 days, and then hopefully 20 to 30 days from now it's going to be better. So that's a big thing. Curious to see if you guys have a song that you've been listening to that you really enjoy right now. Send me your songs. I'm going to make a COVID playlist, and I'll post it on my Spotify. You guys can grab, and we can listen to the COVID playlist together. That's a big one. I know yesterday also I mentioned, you know, a lot of us are lucky if you're still working or you're making wage. Some of us aren't so lucky. I am still making a wage, but more than likely there's the talk that probably by the end of the pay period this week that I'll probably be on EI. So things change daily, and you just gotta roll with the punches. So you just gotta hang in there, and I can't emphasize this enough. The mental health aspect is so important when you're either at home, you're in small quarters, you're being overworked if you're being asked to do more, or even if you're being asked to do things that are in a high stress society, right? So big shout out to anyone in hospitals, grocery stores, and essential services. I know a lot of you are going through a lot, and it's a tough thing to go through. So keep fighting the good fight, because you guys are the real heroes. I haven't seen any chips empty on a shelf, so I know that you guys are doing your part, making sure those chip shelves are full, which is a big thing in terms of mental health for people that are going to lose their shit if they can't get their chips. So that's another good thing. One of the positives that could possibly happen this week from the NHL would be maybe the Seattle team unveiling their new name. That's something I thought about yesterday, and you know, I got to thinking about the names. Obviously, I have my favorite. A lot of people have theirs. I know Totems was out there, and the Seattle Kraken, and a bunch of other ones. I like the Kraken. I think that would be great. But then I got thinking, we've exhausted all the land and sea animals that are feared and predators. We've even done all of the crazy weather events like tornadoes or hurricanes and all those things. But the one thing that we haven't named after a pandemic. I mean, it's fearing, right? I mean, the Seattle COVIDs, no, it's not going to happen. But it might come to a point in the not too distant future from a third tier league that they have some kind of connotation to pandemic, because it's fearing. I mean, and it's smothering. I mean, it represents all the game plans and the opposition of how to beat a team. So, wondering what your thoughts were on that as well. In terms of the NHL, I'm looking at it two ways. I really do think that the season has to finish by August 15th, meaning the NHL has to award the cup by August 15th, not to disrupt next season. But I did hear that you know, there's many scenarios, but the other one that I didn't mind was potentially having the season, play out the rest of the season next year, and hand out the Stanley Cup at Christmas time, take a 3-week break, and then have a shortened season, much like the most recent lockout, either a 48-game or 60-game season, and hand out a second cup, which would be kind of cool for a number of reasons. And that is that it's a real exciting time for the end. We have final conclusion to this year. We get 2 cups in the span of like 6 months, which is also pretty cool. And it kind of piggybacks off what the NBA was already talking about next year, because a lot of their games, especially with weaker teams that aren't relevant in terms of grabbing that attention, the NBA were talking next year or potentially the year after, before this whole thing happened, about possibly awarding a half-season award. Whether or not it was the Larry O'Brien Trophy, but they were going to award some kind of award as like a half-season champion, have some kind of play-in game for the top teams or whatever it was, to engage the fan and keep the fan engaged, because the season's so long. So there's so many great ideas that could happen, and that was one that I was like, you know what, having an award like that wouldn't be bad. The players still need a break somewhere. And it's it's a real thing to try to navigate at this point. But you know, my first hope is that we could start some kind of playoff, like just some kind of play-in in June, and then get to some kind of real playoff, like 2 rounds of best of 5 and then 2 rounds of best of 7 in July, that might even bleed into August, but at least giving, you know, the season to a start. There's too many games as it is. The hope is that maybe we look at the seasons going to 72 games. I think even just lobbing off 10 games in a season would be huge. And we might see that, because you don't want players getting overtired, even in future seasons. Just because of this, we're going to defeat this COVID, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be some other virus that's going to happen in years to come. This is the new